2,000 people were killed during the Korean War. These were people killed by the South Korean military and police, with American officers observing. And a lot of people said this at the time, but it wasn't believed in the foreign press. And instead, the story about a massacre by the North Koreans happened, and that took over the narrative. But it's just a place where, an unresolved place in Daejeon where people are trying to find out the truth. Well, if you speak to Alan Winnington's family, and if you speak to me, you'll find out that Alan Winnington was just a journalist who happened to be with a left-wing paper in Korea. His journalism was subject to the same kind of possibility for exaggeration or propaganda that any media is, but he was committed to explaining the truth of what happened. The most impressive thing for me was working at Donga was just being involved with all of those primary sources for Alan Winnington. Like, sometimes I got the feeling that even the people I worked with, they didn't understand how important all of these primary sources were. Like, the property owners, signed that. Ursula Winnington signed that. So, that all of those images are protected legally by that contract. But I also, Ursula gave many things to Dongri, like a typewriter and a camera, which should be displayed in the museum in some way. It doesn't have to be just being recognised for what Alan Winnington did would be very important.
안녕하십니까.
어서 오세요. 전화냐?
아니요.
안녕하세요. 오랜만이에요. 지금 괜찮아요?
네?
머리 바꿔서 다른 사람 같아. Yeah.
So Song Ga-yeon is the granddaughter of Shin Seung-ran. Shin Seung-ran is a member of the Bree Family Association. She's always at the memorial every year. I'd seen Song Ga-yeon before. She performed at both the previous memorial ceremonies, I think, and because it was suggested, I just thought it would be a sensible thing to do. I've always been a drummer. I was quite well known for drumming in certain bands in England since the age of 14 or something. So it's just another thing I can do. So if I can help her doing that, then that's great. I like that song as well. I've heard it many times, and I think it's got a real hook. And I think it could be kind of a bit. I think it already is a symbol kind of that peace part, but it could be greater than that. It could be made into a song that actually helps people understand what happened.
혹시 조금만 지금 해봤어요?
지금
예.
하시려고 있어요.
궁금해.
골령골 삼허리 세월 속에 흐려져서 얼굴은 아득한데.
잘해요. 와우.
팝송 하나랑 이제 한국말로 된 노래 하나 같이 했으면 좋지 않을까.
뭐예요? 무슨?
팝송은 크랜베리스.
잘하나요?
잘 아신다고.
놀이방 노래.
그래요?
목소리
네.
괜찮아요?
어,
Maybe B?
노력해볼게요.
아,
서로 연습 프랙티스
대전에서. 오케이. 좋아요.
나갈 때까지
예.
파이팅해요 우리 같이.
So, 두 개의 노래 연습 할게요.
오케이.
오케이.
그게 노래.
좋아요.
연구과학과 발표 자리에 참석해 주셔서 감사드립니다. 발표에 앞서 오늘 참석하신 분 소개하겠습니다.
서울대학교에서 내분들을 인턴을 했습니다. 지금은 공간 디자인을 강의를 하고 있습니다.
다음은 스테판 교수의 연구 발표가 있겠습니다.
Okay, so the seminar was there was Stefan and me and my team members, and there was also Annie Pedret, who's quite a well-established designer who works at Seoul National University, and also it was a law professor who specialises in human rights as well from Seoul. So Stefan, when I was trying to do lots of work explaining about the Peace Park to people, I was invited on a podcast called North Korean News, which is just a popular website and podcast.
Actually, it's funny. I heard a podcast that he made where he was talking about the Daejeon massacre, and I Googled him and contacted him, and he was kind enough to write back, and that's how we started communicating over email.
I saw part of my job description at Donggu as when I was in the local government as giving as much as wide a variety of kind of attention as possible to this issue. So I did many things in terms of contacting people outside of Korea, and Stefan was the only person who contacted me directly actually, and the goal was just he had experience with architects and designers and human rights people that I didn't really know, so we pooled our resources together to try and write a memorandum for the council that would talk about these issues in a global context. So we wouldn't repeat the same mistakes that they always do, basically.
So the first thing is we looked at what are some of the challenges, some of the principal challenges that are facing the designers of this museum here in Daejeon. And that letter said, what you did is obviously wrong. But I also want you to know that the fault is not entirely your fault. And I personally want to devote myself to making sure that the factors that led you to do this never happen again.
I suppose I didn't expect very much from the seminar, but I knew that I wanted it to happen because it was my job, and I wanted to show that I was trying my best to do something for the Peace Park project, and I think that was a very worthwhile thing to be involved in. So yeah, I didn't expect anything really. It was up to the council how they interpreted it. Yeah, I think, and everyone I know who's visited other peace parks in Korea, I get the impression that they start off as with a lot of participation and engagement from the local community, and then slowly everybody kind of disappears out of the picture. I think at least the people who aren't serious about it, and what happens is you're left with like at Nogunri, there's a famous little tunnel where some of the people who were escaping from the bombing hid, and you can't even see it at Nogunri. It's like hidden by a toilet. So the only way you can actually see this little tunnel is through the toilet window if you're in the toilet, and even then there's vines growing over it, so the sign that's meant to identify it isn't kind of being shown either. So that kind of thing seems to be obvious, the first obvious thing, and I would really hate that to happen at Goryeo as well, where things are forgotten and just kind of fall out of the picture. I really don't. If you're going to be building a museum like at Noble Re, at the site of where something very important happened, the story needs to be maintained, the places in which it happened needs to be maintained and kind of drawn attention to properly, I think. Fabian was coming to Korea, and it was actually Stefan noticed this because he knows all of the human rights people in Seoul, and he told me that he was going to Jeju Sasan Museum, he was going to the Gwangju museums, but he wasn't going to the museum in Goryeo. And we found that very odd, since the excavations were currently in progress. So Stefan put all of the contacts that he had into place, and they contacted his office in Geneva, I think it was, and because of that, Fabian visited. Yeah, and I was quite proud of that actually, because it gave the projects the recognition it never got.
Sorry to interrupt. My friend Stefan met you last night. Is that correct? David? Would you mind if I had a brief interview, maybe after, with Mr. Salvino? I don't want to interrupt what he's doing. Thank you very much.
There's people, where he comes from, Argentina, this kind of thing has also happened. One of the things that happened was when he was down in the excavations, an official said to him, "Are you surprised? Are you sad about what you see?"
근데 He's not. No. I'm coming from Argentina, so I very well. I'm working very close with the anthropologists.
Yeah.
So I'm not depressed. I feel solidarity with that.
Okay.
Yeah, I just saw it as a chance for many opportunities to arise in the future.
한명도 가해 작업. 책임지는다는 사람이 하나도 없고 사과도 없고.
When Fabian came, he talked to the bereaved families, and he was very interested in what they had to say rather than.
근데 우리 아버님들은 지하에서 아직도 구천을 헤매고 있습니다.
I was lucky to have the interview because I'd been involved in it from the beginning, so I was very lucky.
So, Mr. Salvoli, could you tell me about, you said something before in the excavations about, somebody asked you if you felt sad about Korean history, but you said that you felt a sense of solidarity. Could you elaborate on that?
When you see that people have not justice, have not apologies from the perpetrators, they don't receive compensation, so it's a re-victimization for them.
Right.
And so I feel solidarity with them, and of course I am a human rights person, so my job is inside or outside of the UN to help the victims, make a diagnosis, and then I present a report with the recommendations in order to accomplish the obligations of the states in terms of justice reparations, anti-summoning reparations and mobilization, in order to provide the victims just satisfaction.
Right. Great to meet you again. Brilliant.
Very nice to meet you.
My auntie Deirdre, who died this year actually, she's my dad's sister obviously, and she, when I was 11 or something like that, she phoned up and asked me what I'd want for my birthday, and because I was only 11, I said a drum kit, and then what she did was buy me a drum kit. So I was very surprised. So because of that, my dad had to get me drum lessons. So I started playing drums from a very early age, to the annoyance of my dad in his garage, and the annoyance of the neighbours actually as well.
Play the song one time. Yeah. Okay.
처음에는 좀 부산하고 언어도 잘 안 통하고 전달도 잘 안 되고 그래서 좀 애를 먹었는데 몇 번 하면서 좀 자연스럽게 또 맞아가더라고요. 음악하는 게 또 음악하는 사람들은 음악으로 맞추는 거니까요. 꽤 오랫동안 드럼을 쳤다고 얘기 들어서 상당히 잘 칠 줄 알았는데 처음에 기대만큼은 아니었어요. 근데 역시 구력이 있어가지고 치는 동안 이렇게 연습을 하면서 점점 나아지는 게 금방금방 보이더라고요.
I think when I was 15, I became old enough. I started. When I was 14, I was playing in bands. But when I was 15, I played in bands who played outside of my house, in local pubs and things like that. And then even when I was in Manchester, I joined another band, and we were on the BBC. We did BBC sessions and things. And then around the time of the Asian financial crash, which was not the Asian financial crash, around the time of the 2008 financial crash, the Asian one's a different thing. When I went to Korea, the drumming also stopped. So I stopped my job I had at a university, and I stopped my drumming, and I came to Korea actually. The reason Stefan and Annie visited Korea was, I suppose, because I kept inviting them. because I could see they were both very interested in what was going on. And like everybody I do, when they show interest in this topic, I always invite them. I've invited lots of people to Goryeo, but yeah, and that was for the same reason. Like I always say to people, or I always used to say to people, like, you will not appreciate the size of it or the extent of it until you visit it. So they did, basically. And they took their family, which was very nice.
Because his head looks like it's up, right?
Are these the bones?
Yeah.
So when you guys found them, they were still full?
The bones had kind of disintegrated. So usually you only find thigh bone, because your thigh bone is your strongest bone. So usually you find thigh bones and teeth, not many skulls.
So I think people outside of Korea are interested in this project, and I think it's something that Korea could really build on. I mean, there's a lot of sensitive things, but people are interested in talking about these. What I find when I speak at conferences in outside of Korea is that people think you can't talk about it. People think you're not allowed to speak about these things. Like they're somehow forbidden in Korea. But Korea is building a museum that was started by the Conservative government. It's not a secret, and I want people to discuss it because it will make the whole project so much more whole and worthwhile.
I'm interested in how we're occupying this space, and we were talking about how we're having a conversation, and so my thought is, what would we need on this site to allow these kinds of conversations to, what would be a good physical space that would allow this kind of conversation to occur?
The taboo, right? Because I think all of us are probably busy during the day and we're, whatever, meeting deadlines and writing things and whatever. It's special to have the occasion to have this conversation.
This is a rib bone, and there's a bit of a skull there as far as I can tell. And you can also find in amongst this bullets usually. You often see a lot of these rocks, the bodies, they couldn't keep the bodies down.
I think the physical space of the site is so important because it's only when people go there they realise it. And I think that's what they realised then. They became aware of what really happened there. And I think the museum should also do that. I mean, I'm no designer, but that's the effect I want it to have on everyone.
It's just interesting that how like it was even how the government or how they would even think about doing this. I mean, they didn't do anything. How could the government just let this happen?
And it's so weird that no one talks about it, and even on the U.S. government's watch.
I think it's a very clearly unresolved issue. A lot of work was done with the original Truth and Reconciliation Commission, and then that kind of just fell off the edge of a cliff as far as we could see. I mean, we might be wrong, but nobody really tried to, no closure has been brought to this topic. So there's, in a very obvious sense, I think something had to be done to actually put all of these unresolved arguments and things into place. And I think he felt in a similar way about that. It was to be honest, I think working at Dongu was worthwhile for like two and a half years or whatever it was. Quitting Dongu it just seemed inevitable to me in a way. I mean, I think if Wang Yinghao had been elected again, maybe it wouldn't have been. But I just because the excavations were finishing this year, there wasn't really much I could continue with there other than this work I was trying to do about international engagement. But I knew that I would be continuing this work anyway. It's something I'm deeply involved with in one way. Especially explaining I want to explain the reality of the situation to people outside of Korea because they so often get it wrong.
회장님, 손.
너무 감사했고요. 그동안 정말.
예, 감사합니다. 말하기 어려워요. 하지만 감사합니다.
괜찮습니다. 정말 괜찮습니다.
너무 감사합니다. 감사합니다.
다들 건강하게 잘 지내고 행운이 가득하기를 건강하십시오.
예, 고마워요.
Suddenly, Fabian Salvatore was involved from the UN, and we knew lots of people at Seoul University, and I had lots of contacts with historians and writers and things like that. So it seemed like the perfect kind of opportunity to pool everybody's resources together and do something very good for Daejeon as a city in terms of the Peace Park. And that's a very real possibility because nobody's doing that on a local level. Really. There's always a million projects you can do, and people don't usually have the confidence to try it. But I think
Just some citizens cry.
자마시기 원샷 발음석. Are you crying?
슬퍼요.
슬퍼요? 뭐가 이렇게 슬퍼요?
어려운 거.
슬퍼요. 아유. 처음에 다큐멘터리 그 굴룡 관련 제작을 할 때 갑자기 이제 연락을 받았어요. 어떤 외국인이 이 사안에서 관심을 좀 갖는데 한번 만나고 싶다라는 얘기를 듣고 그래서 만났죠. 치킨집에서 만나가지고 서로 이제 소주 한잔 하면서 이런저런 이야기를 했는데 상당히 많은 자료들을 가지고 있더라고요. 굴룡골에 대해서. 그래서 저희도 많이 놀랐었고 또 공감대를 형성하다 보니까 너무 많은 이야기들을 할 수 있었고 그러면서 이제 그 다큐멘터리 제작에도 되게 큰 도움을 주면서 교류를 하게 됐습니다.
동부청은 어떻게 된 거예요? 동부 지금 일하는 건 다 끝났어요? 동부에서?
일주 전에
어땠어요? 일하면서 재밌었어요?
재미있어.
재밌었어요? 사람들이 잘해줬어요?
다 착한 사람이에요.
다 착한 사람들이었어요?
Do you know he's a very hard-working person, so he's always busy. He always has a million projects on at the same time. So sometimes he takes on too much work, but usually what he does is of very good quality. So it's
괜찮아요?
괜찮아요. 나 좀 아파가지고 비지스트 가이 되잖아요. 너무 힘들어요. 한국말 좀 더 배워야겠어. You should learn Korean more.
창피해요.
창피하죠. 지금 몇 년이야? How long have you been in Korea?
비밀이에요.
한국말 더 배워야 될 것 같아.
I met Stefan. You know, I told you about Stefan. I met him
in the American?
Yeah, from Seoul National University.
Yeah.
And we were thinking of starting a kind of international foundation for.
What kind of international foundation?
Something that would promote the message of the Peace Park globally, so for everybody to kind of understand. So I think Daejeon would be a good place to do this. Do you think that's a good idea?
Oh, so you mean that Daejeon is the starting point?
Yeah, like the origin of a global message of peace.
So that means that I think that there are lots of cities that have the same tragedy like Daejeon.
Oh, many. So
like Auschwitz or Kellenfield.
Fabio Savioli from the United Nations. Even in his own country, in Argentina, there are many situations like that. I mean, and there's grieving families all over South America who have never retrieved the remains of their loved ones who were killed during anti-communist purges and things like that. So, yeah, for Daejeon to have this is very, very important, and it's not political. It's like it's kind of like
non-governmental organization, kind of.
Yeah, it's like an NGO that would like focus all of that attention about what happened to these kind of missing people, and that it's a really important.
So why don't we make a kind of official proposal for the local government? I mean, which have the same tragedy. I mean the massacre like Daejeon.
I've already spoken to many people around the world, and they all agree that that would be a good idea. Even there's many people who are really interested in doing something like this. So I think together we could try and manage that.
So then why don't you give me an opportunity to meet Stefan?
Stefan Sonnenberg.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's go to Seoul and meet him there.
Yeah. Okay. I'm gonna make a time.
Okay.
Somewhere over the rainbow.
Well, I've always been involved in teaching in universities in England. I used to teach a lot of seminars in Manchester when I was there, and when I first came to Korea, I was involved in teacher training. And in Gongju University, that's the teacher training department. So it's like doing the job I did before again. I'm meant to be writing. I'm always writing about Alan Wellington, and I'm meant to be writing a book about Alan Wellington, and now I can actually focus on that. But I'm also always trying to talk about this museum project and the history behind it to as many people as possible. I think in terms of Korean history and me being here, the most interesting story is my granddad Miller. And my granddad Miller worked for the RAF, the Royal Air Force in England, and he was stationed during the Second World War, he was stationed in, I believe it was Singapore, when the Japanese invaded. And when the Japanese invaded, they took him prisoner, and they took him to Tokyo, or near Tokyo eventually, where he worked in sulfur mines. So he was digging the sulfur all the time with his friends and mining it basically for the Japanese. When the Americans dropped the bomb on Hiroshima, the Japanese took my granddad to see the consequences and threatened him and everything like that. So the most horrible thing that happened to my granddad was his best friend who worked in the mine with him was taken out of his cell one day and had his head severed from his body. He was beheaded in front of my granddad. So I think that's actually another thing that makes me think about war and how wrong war is, because you can see every time a war happens, all of these things always happen, and there's no. It's never the case that when a war happens, there's no time to learn from your lessons. You just do the same thing again. It's just such an awful, brutal. Like I said, it seems. I mean, it's a very significant place. Everybody drives past it on the road, and nobody really notices. But once you spend some time there, you begin to see that it's not just this one narrative. It's this incredibly complicated story. I mean, how I found out about Daejeon was visiting there. So when I visited, I first heard about massacres in South Korea at the Army Festival, in the Geryeon Army Festival, and I just saw some pictures of the North Korean massacre. So I was aware that they happened, and I didn't really do anything about that. And then when I was walking in Gongju, I found the sign, and on the sign of the Salgujeng there's pictures from the Korean War, and it says the Picture Post, and the Picture Post is a famous publication from England, so I immediately went, oh right, okay. So this is something that's international in origin, not just something that I know very little about in itself. So because of that, I kind of started searching, and then when I started searching, I found about the Daejeon massacre, and I didn't know if that was it, or if the Gongju massacre was the Daejeon massacre, or if the Daejeon massacre was something else. And then I found the story of Alan Wheaton.
Here is always very scary, I think. It might just be because of the trees, I don't know. Not a good place. I think this place in particular, it shouldn't be ignored. It feels like everything is here and everything is connected. So down there you have a Japanese road marker from Empa Hirohito that was here when the people were killed here. And then there has to be some relation between those people, the people who died here, and the Japanese occupation. I mean, a lot of them wouldn't probably have been here if it wasn't for that history. I don't know. This place is like all of Korean history, the past 200 years, kind of condensed into one place.
Well, each massacre site I've visited in Korea has its own specific nature based on who was killed there, when they were killed, how they were killed, even, you know. So, like, they all have their specific identity, and they're all as important as each other, but in different ways. But what you find is ones like in Gongju, or ones like, there's even one in Sejong, I think. If they're not well known, they're just forgotten, even though they're just as brutal and horrible. So I would hope that all of these places could be linked together somehow.
You told me that the building number is 15-1, right?
Yeah, this one, 15-1.
15-1, I think, yeah, right.
Do you want me to ring him?
Okay.
So, well, when me and Jinho met and we were drinking, I talked about the International Committee with him, and we discussed many things about how it could be organised, and then I decided after that to go to Seoul National University, where we could speak to Stefan and Annie and brainstorm.
Hi Stefan, we're just outside. Okay. He's coming.
Okay.
Move over here.
Yeah.
Out of the sun.
The sunshine is very strong. I think they are the right people, right? 아, 안녕하세요. 안녕하세요. How do you do? How do you do? How do you do? Annie, nice to meet you. Yeah, I'm 진호 정. 진호, call me 진호. 사실 우리나라 사람들도 우리 역사임에도 불구하고 여러 가지 불편한 이유 때문에 이런 걸 외면을 많이 해요. 그런데 외부인들이 우리 역사에 관심을 갖고 또 이런 것들을 사람들에게 알리고 재발 방지에서 힘을 보태는 모습들 정말 너무 고맙다는 생각이 들더라고요. 그 한국인을 제가 대표할 수 있는 그런 자격은 없지만은 한국민의 한 사람으로서 그분들께 너무나 감사하다는 말씀을 꼭 드리고 싶습니다.
Alright, so we came here because you know, we've been working on this issue for a long time now. But there's very little international exposure in a meaningful way. So, you know, you've shown your interest, so I thought maybe we could collaborate in some way. Yeah. Because no one's had an international conference on this issue. Possibly a commission of some kind, an international commission.
I have to say also, particularly from an American perspective, how little I've been taught about this issue. As somebody who went through school in the United States, went to university in the United States, somebody who focuses on human rights, I'm quite disappointed how little I've learned about this. So I think it's really important to get this message out and then to ask ourselves, what do we do? You know, what now, 70 years later, what do we do?
So I was very shocked when I knew the tragedy happened in my hometown. So I tried to learn more about what happened there and during the Korean War. We continued, and what's next? What should we do?
Particularly those who are much fresher, where these kinds of atrocities are happening today, or maybe tomorrow, or maybe only 10 years ago. I think in this sector as well, it has a real strong and important voice to contribute. Which I think would be wonderful for Korea to claim that voice.
And if these group of people can't even sit down and have some venue for listening to each other, not talking to each other, but listening to each other, then that is, I think, a precursor for being able to go up to the international level. I think you need that foundation of having some method. I'm not even saying there's an answer or a solution or a single direction, but having some method that allows all those voices to be heard.
And in this situation, the United States in particular has a shameful past that it could and should be thinking and talking about. So this is not just something that ends at the Korean border. I think this story extends beyond the borders of Korea. So I think that's a really good reason for having this be a global effort.
But I think it'd be good to have some clear mission statement of what that is, or a set of values that say this is what this committee is about, and this is our, you know, the mission is X, and our values are such, and that would then give direction to all the decisions that get made, I think, after that.
물론 저도 함께 좀 힘을 보태야겠죠. 그래서 많은 외국 분들도 계시겠지만 한국민들도 그렇고 뭐 정치하시는 분들, 언론인들, 일반 시민 여러분들 모든 분들이 좀 함께 여기에 관심을 갖고 참여할 수 있도록 저도 나중에 역할을 해보도록 하겠습니다.
잘 왔어요? 아, 네, 잘 왔어요. 잘 지냈어요?
코로나 걸렸다가 이제 막 격리 해제돼가지고 지금 목이랑 코가 조금 상태가 안 좋아서 하필 시기 안 좋게
무슨 노래부터 할게요?
골련골 사머리 먼저 할까요? 좀 사운드 바꾸셨다고 들어가지고 해봐야 할 것 같아요. 네. 드럼 딱 들어가는 건가요?
하얗게. I thought again.
일단 벌써 시작할 때 데이비 다다다다다다 그때 했던 거 한번.
I haven't played the drums for 12 years when I started playing the drums with this kind of group of people, so I couldn't remember anything, and I wanted some time to sit in a room by myself and remind myself how to hold my sticks and how to hit the drums, but I didn't have that time, so I felt very exposed and embarrassed. But I think after a little while I remember what to do, no problem. But it was just my shy sensibility, I think.
점점 맞아가고 있어. 처음부터. 좋아. 점점 좋아져.
그쵸, 원래는 기타랑만 했었으니까 뭔가 좀 여럿이 이렇게 호흡을 맞추는 게 좀 새삼스러운 느낌이기는 하네요. 좀 낯설기는 한데 훨씬 사운드가 풍부해지니까 그건 좋은 것 같아요. 일본인 거랑 박자가 달라가지고 저는 최대한 저 드럼 리듬을 따라가는 쪽으로.
저희가 데이비 따라갈게요.
네, 좀 점점 빨라져가지고 빨라졌다가 후렴해서 다시 원래 만들고 그러는데 그리고 살이 한 다음에 우로 빠져나가기 여기 들어갈 때 제가 원래 조금 더 빨리 들어가야 되는데
파워를 조금 낮춰. 지금 거의 헤비메탈이나 그 얼터네이티브 그 정도 파워.
안녕하세요.
조금만 낮추는 중.
저는 펑크 로커예요.
오케이, 네, 처음부터 그냥 신나게 쳐줘야지 우리 사운드가 3인조 사운드라 감정이 꽉 채워질 것 같아요.
좀 걱정보다 이제는 기대가 더 큰 그런 상태인 것 같아요.
여기가 이진우 선생님 절이에요.
알아요. 예쁘네요.
예쁘죠? Baby, can you read the chapter?
아니요.
저거는 극락전. 극락전. 극락 means heaven. To pray for the straight to the heaven.
알겠습니다.
그리고 여기가
여기 어디요?
여기 선생님 계시는 곳. 글씨는 삼관제인데 삼관이 is another name. 선생님 계세요. 안녕하세요. 네.
안녕하세요. 오랜만이에요.
네, 고맙습니다. 데이빗이 전 세계에 있는 그 민간인들 그 학살이요 있었잖아요. 그 각 지역마다 이제 평화를 이야기하는 그런 그 운동하시는 분들하고 같이 이제 연대해서 그 학살했던 도시에마다 이제 국제협회를 만들어라, 원대자 이런 좀 평화 인권 메시지를 전달하는 그런 걸 좀 하고 싶다고 하더라고요. 그래서 제가 선생님한테 모시고 온 게 데이빗이 그런 걸 잘 할 수 있지. 그리고 이제 외국인이니까 아무래도 이 친구의 운명 그런 걸 할 수 있는 운명인지 그런 걸 좀 궁금해갖고 데리고 왔어요. 네, 데이빗 궁금하다고 하고. 신기해요? 신기해요?
이게 보니까 터닝 포인트. 라이프 터닝 포인트. 내 인생에 있어.
와.
터닝 포인트.
경제예요.
네, 천재네요.
사실은 입장을 바꿔놓고 보면 한국 사람이 영국에 가서 뭐 한다는 게 쉬운 건 아닌데 이 데이빗 같은 경우에 어찌 보면 운명이라고 나는 생각을 하거든요. 그런 어떤 우리나라 그 과거사의 아픈 기억을 자기가 관심을 갖고 여기까지 온 것에 대해서는 이건 그냥 설명할 수 있는 것이 아니라 이게
불가에서 얘기하는 뭐 인연이나 이런 걸 따지기 전에 이건 데이비드의 운명 같은 운명이고 아무나 할 수 있는 건 아닌데 상당히 6개월 후에 가서 내년 봄에는 성사가 된다고 사계국 처음에는 4개
In the beginning, the 4 countries.
어딘지는 모르겠지만
He doesn't know where it is.
4개국이 지정돼 내년 봄 그때는 2, 3월로 보는데 그때는 약간 좀 변화가 있지 않겠나 하는 일에 저 새로운 직장 이사 가면 가장 하고 싶은 게 여자친구 사귀는 거예요.
아, right?
비밀해요. 여자친구도 생기고 하는 일도 잘 되고 인정도 받고 편할 거예요.
어때요? How about his, you know, fortune telling?
기분이 좋아요. 진짜 존재. I've something. 예, 감사합니다.
그래서 정말 행복고 힘드셨죠?
괜찮아요. 조금요. communication 조금 어려워요. 하지만 연구 많이 했어요.
아니 뭐 한겨울 가격을 쉽게 보니까 리딩은 가능합니다.
예, 괜찮아. 좋아요.
When I met Wanino for the first time, I suppose he just started his term in Donggu, and he was recently, and we were showing the first documentary film. And the first time I saw him, one of the Bree families was quite upset. He was saying things to him that, about what the government should do and everything like that. And he seemed quite positive about helping her, and he seemed to give her the answers she wanted, and that seemed to have come true as well from the amount of time he put towards it. So, yeah, I in terms of Goryeo, at least I think he did what he promised.
Huntington.
후손으로서 70년의 간격을 두어서 그 후배가 다시 꿈을 찾아서 이런 연구를 했다는 리서치라고 굉장히 힘들어요. 이제 우리 둘 다 동부청을 떠났으니까 하지만 그 작업은 앞으로 계속 해야 할 것 같아요.
위하여.
좋은 저녁.
시원하다.
시원해요, 여기. 여기. 개조심이지.
개조심? 개 어디에요? 안 보여요. 요즘은 서울대에서 교수님 많이 많았어요. 우리는 세상에서 contacts. There are many contacts in the world that we make. South America, North America, Africa, Cambodia, London, everywhere. Auschwitz, the Auschwitz Center for Prevention of Genocide and Mass Atrocity. So, 함께 해 주시겠어요?
물론이죠.
좋아요. 감사합니다.
네. 함께하면은 잘 될 거예요. 세계적인 진짜 명품 평화원도 만들어야겠지만 하드웨어로 끝일 게 아니라 소프트웨어. 드라마, 필름, 영화 이런 거 이렇게 잘 만들어서 우리 대한민국 국민들만이 아니라 한국 프로가
상태가
잠은 잘 주무셨고요?
잠 잘 자고
네. 하시던 대로 하면 잘하실 텐데요. 뭐.
잘해야 하는데 갑자기 이 상태가 좀.
목이 다 아직도 안 나으셨어요?
네, 다 안 나와가지고 지금도 좀 계속 건조한 것 같아서.
Trying to take the ends off this because it's very weird. It's the wrong weight. This one doesn't come up. It's okay. I will. 힘내요.
시간이 많이 지체돼갖고요. 13분 안에 리허설 끝내야 되니까.
베이스가 굉장히 작게 들리는데.
베이스가 너무 작게 들립니다.
앞에서 뭐래요?
잘 들려요. David, you have to speak really slow. Slow.
네, 안녕하세요. 저희는 일단 평화블루스라는 팀이고요. 저희는 6.25 한국 전쟁 때 대전으로 나눠지게 있는 작은 모자이크에서 번째 끔찍한 인간의 학살에 대해 이야기하는 다큐멘터리입니다. 우선 저는 보컬을 맡은 설가경이라고 하고요. 저희 기타에는 정현기, 그리고 저희 베이스에는 신혜선 그리고 드럼에 데이비 대령님과 함께 해주시고 있습니다. 반갑습니다.
커피. 고생했지. 너무 잘했어요. 사람들
내가 걱정했던 것보다는 잘된 것 같기도 하고.
안 떨렸어요? 그래도 목 아프다고 해도 잘하셨어요, 되게.
기지를 많이 하네요.
우리 실수한 거 없어요?
뭐 특별히 실수한 건 없는 것 같아요.
데이비드 잘했어요. 미스테이크, 노 미스테이크?
No mistake. Very good.
됐어요? 네, 어땠어요? How did you feel when you played?
역사 history David. 옛날의 David.
저는 여러분들 연주하시는 것도 밖에서 봤지만은 관객분들 표정을 좀 봤어요. 그래서 상당히 몰입하시면서 잘 보시더라고요. 노래도 끄떡끄떡 하시고 그래서 항상 되게 뭉클했습니다. 정말 좋은 공연 만들어서 고맙습니다. 같이 한번
I suppose if one thing comes true, I hope that by doing this performance, now and maybe even in the future, all of the things that happened in the Korean War and all of the things that are still causing problems for people in Korean society can be dealt with and recognised internationally. That's what I hope anyway. But that's maybe a big ask. If there's an international committee in Daejeon, you can do many things. I mean, one of the things that the easiest thing to do is make clear, active partnerships with other museums all over the world.
Was the incredible opportunity that the city of Daejeon has, and that the civil society, the journalists, the non-profit organizations.
It's yes, let's do a committee, absolutely, but let's design that committee. How are we going to do that? And then let's figure out how we're going to interact with the world.
물론 갈 길은 멀고 또 주변 상황이 녹록치는 않지만은 긴 호흡을 갖고 계속 진행해 볼 생각입니다. 데이비 밀러는 지금도 과학 관심 여러 분들과 함께 이 협체 구성에서